Our last speaker for this morning is Colin Vernon, and Colin's going to talk to us about the issues that were actually raised by both Maeve and Ross in their presentations about the gig economy and the impacts of casualisation, underemployment and the challenges facing workers. So Colin is the elected Secretary of the Geelong Trades Council, proudly representing the union movement of the Greater Geelong area. Prior to being elected Secretary, Colin worked as a butcher with Coles Supermarkets before joining the CFMEU as an occupational health and safety organiser, organising workers in the forest and furnishing products division. Colin is a skilled negotiator with a deep knowledge and understanding of the issues facing working people and a strong passion for advocating for their rights. Please welcome Colin.
Thanks very much, and good morning. First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Wathaurong, elders past and present. This is Aboriginal land, always was, always will be. Gig work, or as some in the union movement like to call it, piecework, is a system of work where workers are paid on units of production. Piecework is not a new way of working, however, and has been around since the inception of capitalism. The employers' representative, the Australian Industry Group, in their thought leader paper, The Emergence of the Gig Economy, use such terms as on-demand work, temporary work, task-by-task work, or even freelancing to describe this type of work. The AIG, however, go on to make statements that we can't let go without comment. Statements such as workers choosing to abandon 9-to-5 employment in favour of working task-by-task employment. We say this statement is not the case and is misleading. Our experience tells us more and more workers are pressured to have little other choice but to move onto this system of work, and if given the opportunity, would choose full-time employment. Whatever the name you give it, whether that be on-demand work, temporary work, freelancing, task-by-task, or gig work, it's still piecework. It's just another avenue to engage workers in a way that would lead to increased profits for employers in the short term, but less rights, security, and spending power of workers in the long term. The modern use of language can be very deceiving though, and the use of the word gig is no exception. In the past, the word gig had implied a positive event, such as having a gig at the pub on a Friday or a Saturday night to earn some extra income above your regular income stream. If you got a gig, it was normally something that you'd be happy about, that you could brag to your mates that you had a gig, but that's not the case now. But for working people to use the word gig in the gig economy couldn't be further from this example. Gig workers increasingly have reduced job security, no entitlements to historic workplace conditions, and less income. To understand a union's perspective around the so-called gig economy, it's important to understand where we've come from and how we got here. Working conditions such as full-time employment, the 8-hour working day and superannuation, just to name three, were not given to workers by a well-meaning employer, nor were they given freely by government. These conditions were won by workers as a result of a strong union movement where workers were able to stand together, make demands of their employer and their government without fear of being sacked or black-banned as a result. However, today, with the current system of broken laws that restrict workers' ability to organise, bargain and stand up, but on the other hand, give too much power to the employer, good, full-time, secure employment is decreasing, and there's a steady reduction of real wages and conditions as a result. The nature of work is changing. It's not changing for the better. Wage growth has stagnated, resulting in pressure on the economy to the point that even the Reserve Bank Governor, Phil Lowe, urged workers to demand higher pay rises. Think about that for a second. That's extraordinary. Many workers of today are not engaged in secure full-time employment and don't enjoy all the rights and conditions that flow from that. Many workers are forced to be gig workers, contractors, casuals or labour hire workers. A story in the Sydney Morning Herald on March 27, 2017 says 659,000 young workers nationally are regarded as unemployed or underemployed, the highest levels in 40 years. This in an environment where businesses are still allowed to engage workers in exploitative arrangements, like the infamous 457 visas, work visas, that exploited vulnerable workers in the meat industry. Today, more than 50% of workers don't have an entitlement to conditions such as annual leave. The rise of underemployment resulting from casualisation and insecure work arrangements have been made worse by a reduction in skills. This is due to reduced investment in apprenticeships, training, and now restrictive work laws, the Australian Building Code, that outlaw apprenticeship ratios in enterprise agreements. Now workers have to deal with gig work that is insecure, less workplace entitlements, require the use of their own resources, such as capital, cars, tools, equipment, clothing, to carry out their daily work. This has resulted in an environment where workers are less well off than the previous generation. There's little difference between the way work is being arranged under the gig economy to that of the Great Depression. At the time of the Great Depression in 1932, unemployment was at a high 30%. Workers would line up outside the gate in the hope to receive a day's work. Many would be turned away. Times were tough back then and are becoming tough again now. Many workers of today, such as disability workers working under the NDIS, don't line up outside the gate for work like they did back in the Great Depression, but they wait at home by the phone, waiting for a text message to come through to say that they've received work, sometimes as little as an hour. Workers are now telling us of a new trend from interstate that require workers to sign up to an app similar to a dating app, where they must insert a photo of themselves, put a bio of themselves in the hope that a client will select them for work. In addition, if the workers have been lucky enough in the first place to have been selected for work, the client can leave a star rating of service, potentially leaving them vulnerable to receiving poor ratings that could jeopardise their future job opportunities, and have no recourse to dispute unfair ratings. What would happen if an unemployed worker refused such a job? Would they lose unemployment entitlements? These are questions that need to be answered. In closing, the gig economy might sound exciting to some at first, offering short-term benefits for employers and opportunities for a few highly skilled and sought-after workers. However, the overall reduction in workers' take-home pay, the added requirement for workers to contribute capital to the job, and the lack of job security will result in less capital flowing through the economy, further reducing consumer confidence, placing even more pressure on the domestic building retail and services sector. This will have a profound impact on us all. Thank you very much.